everybody. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us again. I am here with Phill Monson, and he is the founder of Adventure Responsibly. So, Phill, I want to start out by just having you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're based, what you do for a living, and then we will kind of transition into how I stumbled upon you, which was through Instagram, and all of the presence that you have and what you're trying to work towards.
Sure. Well, first of all, I apologize that you stumbled upon my Instagram. It's a horrendous hodgepodge of things. I don't know what, when people say that, I'm like, ugh. Is it a photo? Is it outdoor awareness? Is it an anatomically correct gingerbread man? What did you find? I don't know what. It's all over there.
It's a great account.
But first of all, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity, and it's always great to talk about outdoor awareness and how we can all be better stewards for the outdoors. That's a huge thing that I'm obviously, and your guys are obviously heavily involved in. So a little bit about my background. So Phill Monson. As far as the outdoors go, in terms of myself, I grew up in Idaho and Oregon, and now consider myself a Utahn. Lived here since '95. I'm really dating myself now, but always have had very close access to the outdoors. Growing up in Scouts, those outdoor principles and awareness was always really ingrained in me since a child. But yeah, live here in Utah now with my wife, 2 kids, or a dog, kind of the nuclear family, if you will. And we spend as much time as possible getting outdoors and working to educate people on how to take care of these places and leave them better. So as far as I think you asked what do I do? So a couple things. One, day job. Is I'm a user experience designer for a company, and that's a fancy term for saying I make websites prettier and more user friendly. So,
Okay, so is that where the graphic design stuff came in? Was just your experience in your job?
yeah, I've had as far as graphic design, I've had a long history of that. I've always been. Some would say I'm not that great, others questionable. But as far as my skill set goes, I've long had just a desire to create and make things. And, when I was in high school, I always wanted to do these big projects and, hey, let's make videos and with my friends. And they were like, no, that's dumb. We're not going to do that. So that led to how can I create with what I have and kind of if I had to rely on myself, how can I just do that? So that actually led to photography, landscape photography, graphic design, things I can do on my own. I don't have to rely on anybody else to take photos or to create something. And so that naturally and thankfully got me a great job as a UX designer, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoy that, and thinking through a lot of complex challenges. People are like, yeah, you push pixels and you put buttons at different places. What, big deal. But button placement is very important. So,
It is important.
sometimes it can take a whole day to and make a whole committee to talk about where do we place that button. And then as far as Adventure Responsibly, we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's kind of a very personal passion project, trying to do what I can, use whatever skill set I have to help promote better outdoor awareness and encourage stewardship. So that's me in a nutshell.
So I know that you mentioned that you were in Boy Scouts growing up and having that access and introduction from an early age to the outdoors, but have you ever worked in outdoor spaces or anything like that? Or what was the transition from becoming, just your everyday person that loves the outdoors and potentially maybe wants to learn a little bit more to the person that's going to use their voice and actually get vocal, get loud, and educate others? Because I feel like that's a big step.
Sure. So a little bit about that, and Boy Scouts was really an important part of that. I didn't realize that until kind of over the last several years, how important and formative those years were. But it really started in Oregon. We were doing a backpacking trip into the Mount Hood Wilderness, and we came across this campsite. And I've shared this story quite a bit, but it's kind of like this turning point in life, and one I can really go back to and think back to a lot of how I am today. But we came across a campsite that had garbage on it, and garbage then to now is pretty staggering as far as what you're seeing a lot of. But in 92, 93 time frame, when that was a trash campsite, it was probably a few beer bottles and just general camping garbage, to now where we're seeing like massive dump sites where I can go to a day use area by my home, and I can go there on a weekly basis and fill up 2 or 3 garbage bags without fail every time. Yeah. So relatively back then, a few cans left behind and whatnot was a trashed campsite. But my scout leader, we're backpacking, we're 12-year-old, 13-year-old boys, and we're tired and complaining about the backpacks. We just want to get to camp and play night games, whatever, right? But we came across this, and my scout leader stopped us, and he said, "Boys, we have to leave this place better than we found it. Leaving it better than you found it, that's kind of the unofficial scout motto, right?" And I think probably at the time we all complained and said, "Well, this is dumb. Why do we have to do this?" But that experience really has transitioned to where I am now. And so a little bit about that background of where do you just come from, somebody who enjoys the outdoors, to what I do now. Well, 2016, 2017 timeframe, I just started, I've been obviously heavily involved in the outdoors and recreating and camping and hiking and backpacking and all those things. I just started to really notice this increase in litter and vandalism, and also people being just woefully unprepared for an outdoor experience. And people don't necessarily equate being prepared with conservation, but it very much is, because if you're underprepared and require assistance, well, that has a massive rippling effect in terms of your impact. And so as a landscape photographer, I was in these beautiful places and would see the litter and the vandalism. And it kind of came to a crux in 2018 where a very sacred, special place, False Kiva in Canyonlands National Park, that wasn't on any map. It wasn't heavily advertised or anything, but social media kind of let the cat out of the bag. And unfortunately, because the vandalism was so bad there, the park has permanently shut that down to access. And so I just started really thinking, like, one, photography's fun and it's great, and I'm sharing all these places, but and I'm enjoying these places, but are my kids going to be able to enjoy these places? Are other people's kids going to be able to enjoy these places? And when we talk about access to the outdoors, well, I think one of the greatest threats we have is the litter and the vandalism, when that shuts places down and it does bar people from enjoying those places. It kills me that I can't take my kids to False Kiva right now and help them understand the cultural significance of the site. This is the beauty of the area. Places like, I really like to get into the backcountry of Escalante National Monument, and I started, over the years that I had been going there, saw more and more vandalism of the slot canyons, which just it literally kills me to see these things. And so I thought, what can be done? What can I do? And there's it kind of shifted from this focusing on, I got to get the next great photo to get as many likes as possible, to, no, I need to use whatever platform I have to talk about outdoor awareness and education and really encourage people to be stewards of these places. How can they, some people, when they think of stewardship, they think they have to do some massive project or something like that. But it's, really encouraging people to, hey, if you see litter on your hike, take an extra bag with you and, pack out more than you pack in. It's really that simple. Or using your voice to talk about stewardship is cool. Not carving your Instagram handle into the sandstone.
Yes.
And so it really just morphed into this whole thing. I don't know if you've ever read Simon Sinek, any of his books. He's got a great book called.
Give me a recommendation. Give me a recommendation.
I'm giving you a recommendation. It's called Start with Why. And his whole thing is you have to have a reason for existing. Something, a purpose, a cause, a belief, something greater than yourself. And I really started to kind of take that to heart. The Start with Why is, I call it my secular Bible. He's my temporal guide to this world. But and his thing is, you look at companies and businesses that have longevity and they're purpose driven. It's not passion. It's purpose driven, and the main thing is to start with why. And so, kind of getting into the Adventure Responsibly stuff. So, 2018, when all of this was going on, what is my why? And it is to promote outdoor awareness and encourage engagement in outdoor stewardship. And the what of that is through social messaging, it's education, it's awareness, it's getting people involved in taking care of the outdoors. And we just happen to sell shirts and stickers and with cheeky little messages and whatnot.
Catchy little catchphrases. That's what I saw first. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Like these taglines are so good. Now I need to talk to him.
Yep.
I want to know what you think the most valuable thing someone that is like an outdoor, like nature lover or adventure lover could be doing right now, even the most small, minuscule step, because I think that we discussed this too with our mission. And, I think we see a lot of stuff through social media and through the news. And like if anywhere you turn, you can find something that's letting us know that, climate change is happening. Global warming is real. Like these things are going to impact us, and it can be really overwhelming. Sure. And I think that at some point people are like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. I want to do something. I want to make a difference, but like I'm one person. Will it matter? Will it actually make a difference? And so I'm curious of what you think the most beneficial steps that like one person can take are.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
So two things that I can think of are, one, it is overwhelming. It almost seems just daunting, and to the point of why even try? And I think that's where being purpose-led versus passion really comes into play. Because if you're just passionate about something, well, passion fades over time. Mm. When I was a kid, I was really passionate about Legos, and and now it's like, well, I still like to play with Legos, but I'm not as into it, right? And so being purpose driven, and so what I mean by that is you brought up climate change, global warming, litter, vandalism, not being prepared. There's so many things out there, and I would say to start is just you need to just start and get into it in some way, whatever your purpose is. So for example, I'm really adamant about not vandalizing, being prepared, and not littering, and how to be a good steward. And so that's what I really focus on, and that's where my messaging comes along. I am not necessarily qualified, I don't think, to talk about some of those bigger issues, but it all kind of plays into each other. But I have a good friend, a good, incredibly talented landscape photographer who is extremely purpose driven on talking about climate change and those things. And that's what he uses his platform for. So the first part of that is to be purpose driven and find whatever thing that you can talk about and you can lend your voice to, and start and go with that. The second part of that is to understand that in this world, and I know, influencer, that word also makes me want to kind of vomit a little bit when I say it, but the reality is we're all influencers in some way. And so I say,
Yes.
if you have one follower, if you have 1 million followers, you have influence. That one person, maybe it's your mom, I don't know. They follow you for a reason. They care about what you have to say. And so using your platform, I like to call influencing for good, considering what you post, consider that it does have weight and it has meaning behind it. And so, I see a lot of these folks that are getting out and enjoying the outdoors, and they found that the outdoors is pretty, and taking pretty pictures outdoors generates a lot of likes and engagement, fake internet points, I like to call it. But
Right.
that's great that you posted that picture. I'm glad that you're enjoying that place. Now, with your 50,000 followers, are you talking about educational posts on this? Hey, here's some interesting considerations for this area. It's really fragile. Kind of leading in some educational posts there. So, yeah, it is daunting, but I kind of like to take of it as, what little piece can you take and lend your voice to? And then when you take that, how are you using whatever means and platform you have to get that message out?
Yeah, I think that's such a crucial point to make too about like influencing, is that we all have like our communities and our networks. So even if it's not even on social media, it's like, who are you coming into contact with every day? Who are you interacting with throughout your week? What are you walking the walk and talking the talk about when you're going out? Are you, like I'm a trail runner and I have a bunch of friends and we all go out and we trail run. It's like when you see a piece of trash and you're on a trail run, you stop and you pick it up and you put it in your pocket and you keep going. And then as that goes on, the more that they're consistently seeing that, they're like, oh, I'm going to do the same thing because I really value these trails and I love being on them and I love being in these spaces and I don't want this nasty thing to like ruin the view or, like to get into the soil or to impact the wildlife, And I think it's just that little planting of the seed of being a leader and like, I guess, a lamplighter in your community too. Whether that is through what you're saying whenever you're posting in social media, because it is a powerful tool if it's used properly. And I think that even whenever I've seen you, like when you're calling out things like, hey, this is like, you shouldn't be doing this. This isn't acceptable. And like, I can't believe that someone even has the gall to post this on social media, that they're doing these things. Like it makes you think twice because for me, I can't imagine people bragging about, picking rocks off of things or, like carving their names into really fragile historical sites or taking things from historical sites, that is beyond my comprehension. But then it's like, but that's not how everyone looks at nature. And there have to be people that are standing up for the things that can't stand up for themselves. Like they can't talk and, they can't advocate for themselves. So the more people we have that are willing to use their voices and truly be the thought leaders and the provokers in that way, I think the better, because we don't have, trees that are able to say, don't carve into me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Exactly.
I think people would change really quickly if they could actually hear them say, like, "Hey, that actually hurts me."
If the tree started screaming and bleeding, it might change some
trauma. For sure.
Yeah, I've always thought, how do we make stewardship cool? And the
that's one of our catchphrases too. Is like, how do you make picking up trash cool? Like, how do you make a litter cleanup like the thing to do?
Yeah.
And I think for me, and I wonder if you agree with this too, like, I think it's the moment that doing something becomes tangible. So that's why we prefer to not have people donate money to us, but we would rather have people come out
Mm-hmm.
and physically do a cleanup, because the minute that you're actually investing your time and your energy and you're out picking up trash, you care
Yeah.
more. And you start to experience like, wow, there's actually a lot more trash out here than I ever thought there would be. And like, I can't believe that this is here. And you just start to resonate more deeply with whatever the cause is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty firm that I worry that, selfishness has always been a thing in our since the beginning of time. Probably we tend to think about number one first, and so you made a good point about how do we talk for the things that cannot? How do we do things for the places that cannot do it themselves? And when you do, people are like, well, how do I get more connected with nature? Well, be of service to it. If you want to have a better connection with your friends or your neighbors or relatives, the thing to do is to provide service. I promise anyone that you will find and form better relationships with people when you provide service. It's absolutely the same with the outdoors. If you want to form a better connection to these places, it's by getting involved and serving them. And people are like, the Ed Abbey quote of being a part-time crusader really resonates with me. It's like, I cannot dedicate 100%. I wish it'd be nice, but I've got other responsibilities. But what I can do is I can lend my voice. I can get out and I can clean up litter. I can organize litter cleanups. A lot of people think, oh, you're such a tree-hugging radical. It's like, no, not at all. I just, I enjoy clean trails and, drinking clean water and breathing good air. I don't know how that's radical, but yeah.
And like you said, like wanting it to be around for further, like future generations, that is a huge driver of, I get to see these beautiful places and I can't imagine what the world would be like if they weren't here at all. And that is a reality of something that could happen if we aren't more mindful and, investing more time and energy into these places like that. We can see it happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So service, stewardship, getting involved in some way. Maybe that's just cleaning up litter in your local park, in your local area. If you're in public lands and you see litter, just pick it up. And you're absolutely right on that, where sometimes people just don't realize how much of a problem things have become until they start getting involved. So when I started posting a lot of litter cleaning up videos, people are like, wait, are you going to the same place like every week in this? I'm like, yeah, that's the challenge. That's the problem. And
it's alarming.
It's cool to see when people, will tag me or they'll send me like, hey, we were out on, in a camp and we cleaned this up. I'm like, that's amazing. Like how cool is that? And you're teaching, especially when people with kids are out there and they're teaching their children to do that. That's where my concern is, I grew up with like Woodsy Owl and Captain Planet and those things, and I don't see that anymore. And so if we can get parents to get involved and teach their kids about being good stewards and how to take care of those places, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. I feel like those are all really great points too. I think even when we say that, like, you just have to take one step, whatever that step looks like, and then things kind of start to fall into place. But sometimes the fear is the hardest part, to just take the first step. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Even around education, or finding Instagram accounts that are, educating on things, even if that's like, national park accounts and things like that, where they're teaching about things, and then you feel more empowered to go out and also advocate and then share this information with people that I feel like there are endless opportunities to learn more and engage, and then go out and implement it and be part of a solution. And I think that's an important part too, is just instilling it like, okay, I have the power to actually create change, instead of sitting on the sidelines and just like watching this happen, saying like, oh my gosh, I wish there was something we could do differently. And it's like, well, we can. Every day we can do something a little differently that over time and the more people that are doing it will create impact and will create change. Sometimes it's just hard to see when you're like a tiny little speck in like a big picture. But that's part of like, even when we have this Wildkeeper ambassador community. And I think one of the things that inspires everybody so much is like, we have impact day every month that you go out and pick up trash, and then we total all of that trash up, and you see like, oh wow, like my 1 pound or my 5 pounds added together to this like 8,000 pounds that was picked up. And like, that feels really good to be a part of something that's like making a bigger impact than like maybe I would feel if I was just an individual or something like that. But every person matters, and everything that you do is important.
Absolutely. And that's what I kind of thought, where I started, really getting heavily involved in picking up litter. And there, there's some detractors from that, where, picking litter isn't going to do much until we get some more investment from corporations who are making a lot of this litter. And that's definitely a healthy conversation to have. But I just started kind of thinking like, man, wouldn't it be nice if somebody picked up this litter? And then I thought, well, I'm somebody. I can pick this up. So.
Yes. So then tell me more about Adventure Responsibly. Like, when did you found it? What are your core missions with it? I even went on and I was looking, and it looks like you're advocating towards vandalism in specific areas of Utah right now. So like, what are the passion projects? Do you pick one? Are there many? Just tell me more about.
Yeah. So talking about overwhelming, the projects are, and the material writes itself, I like to say. It's just nonstop, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to what I said originally, like, 2018, 2017 was when things kind of, I just saw so much vandalism, so much litter, and started to kind of put together like, well, why don't I use my, whatever design skills I have to, promote stewardship in the outdoors. And when False Kiva was shut down, that was such a raw deal for humanity. I feel that was like, yes, I'm all in on this message, and moving forward on that. And so I really try to focus on, a few core things. Like, one, vandalism is wrong. That littering is wrong, and being prepared for an outdoor experience. Because there's been so many experiences in my life where I've been, and when I say this, I'm not trying to like, oh, look how cool I am. But it's like a real experience that I over and over have had, where I'm on trails and people are struggling, and I just like, hey, how you doing? And you can tell they're like, oh, and I'm like, do you have enough water with you? Are you, and every time, I always carry plenty more water than I need, so I can help others out on the trail. Those type of experiences, especially where like search and rescue in Salt Lake and, in Utah alone has gone up like 40% over the last couple of years. And that's a drain on a lot of people and resources, and impacts the environment as well. And so kind of all those things really combined, that I really try to focus on what I call the 5 B's, or how to be outdoors. And these were actually inspired by my kids, and generally, I'll get roasted for this, but generally you see a lot of kids on the TikTok doing weird dances and whatnot. But generally, kids have an incredibly in tune point of view on things that I think can help us out a lot. So I just asked my kids, I was like, what does it mean to be outdoors? How do you be outdoors? And I kind of get emotional about it, but the things that they said like blew me away. I'm like, here's these kids that seemingly know, so much just about, and get so much from being outdoors. And how can we kind of translate that? And so it came up with these 5 B's of, kind of like the Beatitudes of the outdoors, if you will. Being prepared, being present, being respectful, being careful, and being of service. And if we can kind of incorporate how to be outdoors by following those things, and that's really what Adventure Responsibly tries to promote and focus on. And that's generally through, like I said, social impact, a lot like you guys, organizing litter cleanups, doing my own litter cleanups, donating to the national parks. I'd like to do a lot more, but, doing what I can, encouraging people to put off the selfish attitude and think about their impact in the outdoors. How do they pay it forward? I don't know if I'm kind of weird on language and, giving it back. I don't know if that works. I don't know if I can ever give back what the outdoors has given to me. But what I can do is I can try to pay it forward for future generations to enjoy these places. And so I really try to focus that messaging on, how do you pay it forward? How do you visit with respect? How do you focus on putting putting nature first above your own needs?
The thing that comes to mind when you're talking about, giving back or paying it forward, is the book Braiding Sweetgrass and the act of reciprocity, and just saying like, okay, nature and the land gives so much to me. What can I do just to say I'm going to reciprocate this and take care of you too, and just at least say thank you. Just say thank you and acknowledge all of these things that we get when we're outside, or like when we're growing a garden, or anything. And just at least the smallest thing we can do is just acknowledge that and say, wow, this gives me so much value. Maybe I should take care of it more. Maybe I should protect this because look at all of the things that it provides for me. That was like a pivotal book, and one that I think about all the time whenever I'm thinking of how I want to take care of nature and remove things that are toxic or going to impact it negatively, and just say, oh, if I pick up this piece of trash, like I'm saying thank you. And that's really important.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so my next question for you is about this book that you wrote. And so I noticed it's a children's book, right?
Generally, yeah. That was the goal of it.
Okay, tell me more about writing a book.
Yeah, again, going back to that, I had Woodsy Owl on Captain Planet and these great stewardship messages when I was a kid. And I kind of just thought, what is out there for kids, right, these days about taking care of these places, and that it's not a weird thing to do, and it shouldn't be a political issue. We should all be actively concerned about how we treat this place and our public lands, and so the dumb thing is that I try to make my content engaging, entertaining, educational. I really try not to be on a soapbox too much. I know generally, sometimes that does happen. So a little bit of background on it is I started doing a lot of litter cleaning up just individually, like 2016, 2017. And the way I approached it, I was really frustrated. There was like one of Utah's, northern Utah's main water sources was getting just polluted and with a lot of litter. And so I was cleaning up a lot of that, and it was really frustrating. And I was like kind of yelling at the audience of, hello, like, how is this even, a thing? Like, how does anybody think this is okay? And that goes so far to a point. And then I had a couple friends, it was almost like an intervention. They're like, dude, we love what you're doing, but the lecturing kind of feels, a bit too lectury. It just felt so negative all the time. And so I took that into play and consideration of that. It's like, all right, well, how do you make litter cleaning fun or, funny and or entertaining. And so I look back at like Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers and, kind of all those um, role models that taught good principles, but did it in a kind and a good, entertaining and engaging way. And one day I was watching Jurassic Park with my kids, and the Muldoon character came on. He's the Australian guy, and he's the clever girl guy, and he's got these ridiculously short shorts, the long socks, just the whole persona was. I was like, that could be something fun. So I went out to local outfitter, got the shortest shorts I could find, and kind of tried to do the whole outfit. And it was Nigel the Litter Hunter was born, and it was going out and just trying. Again, I fully am aware how stupid it probably is and dumb, but the response was really actually pretty amazing. And people were, they're laughing and they're like, I'm watching this with my kids, and my kids like to look forward to Litter Hunter episodes. And I'm like, well, all right, well, we'll keep this going. And then that kind of spurred into, when people started taking, like, my kids are watching this with me, and my kids are now wanting to go out and be a litter hunter and pick up garbage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I started thinking again, well, how do we reach more kids? What is a way to encourage stewardship from a very young age? And so this idea of putting a children's book together kind of started coming into play, of just a normal guy who's going out enjoying his campsite, and he comes across a campsite and it's covered in trash. And he's like, well, that's a bummer, and so he leaves and he goes to the next campsite, finds the same thing. Again, we're not stretching reality. That is an unfortunate reality these days. And he thinks, what can be done? What can happen? And the magical litter grabber materializes and grants him the power of becoming Nigel the Litter Hunter, and he can go out and clean up all these places. And the crux of the story is that, look, you don't have to be a superhero to be a hero for the outdoors. Like, anybody can go out and clean up and leave it better. And I have a really good friend, Alex Chamberlain. He's the incredible illustrator behind it. And I just thought, like, hey, what do you think? Do you want to do this with me? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And we had no idea if it was going to happen or work out. We just kind of put it out there, and so we got it all done. We put all this work into it. We're like, yeah, we're going to do a Kickstarter. We're going to get this ready to go and funded. And so we launched in March 2020, which was probably the absolute worst time on
not the most
ideal. Hindsight, but it kind of played into it pretty well, because a lot of people were home and had nothing to do, and so I could promote the book, and yeah, it was awesome. We got it funded, and it was really cool to see that come to life, and that we got it into the hands of a lot of kids, and had opportunities through Zoom to read the book to different conservation organizations, and so yeah, it was a lot of fun, and had a lot of fun doing it. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds like such a cool just thing to have, like, be an idea and then see it come to life in reality. And now that I'm thinking about it, honestly, during the pandemic might have been one of the best times, because, like, in our community, a lot of people ended up joining during the pandemic because they felt like they had no other rushes or focuses, and so they wanted to get out and do something, because we were all cooped up so much. But giving back feels better than just like getting outside. So it was almost like an incentive to say, okay, I can't go very far from my home, or I can't really see very many people right now, but I can go do this thing, and that does make me feel productive, and it does make me feel good. And then when you add in, inspiring the next generation, the future generations, I mean, I feel like that's the key to everything. If we are able to instill these principles and, like, this passion or, purpose into these younger generations to come, I feel like that is going to bring up an entire just group that is so powerful and will say, no, we're going to speak up for this at every election.
Yeah.
When we're voting, we're going to be voting in favor for nature instead of just like watching things unfold that you have no control over, you know? Yeah. So being able to be a part of that process has to feel, I don't know, like wonderful. Like just being able to create something that could potentially propel that has to feel really fulfilling.
Yeah, it was really cool to go from through the whole process of is this going to happen, or did we just do a whole lot of not for nothing, because there's a story, and we were very much, if this doesn't, we can't make physical books and get some production behind it, then we'd at least and the ebook version is free. We give that out to anybody who wants it. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a purposeful project, and I think has some meaning, and to some determined. I mean, my kids are like almost OCD now on litter. Like if they see litter on, we got to get it. I'm like, well, that's good. We taught them well, so.
Yeah, I just, even speaking about the pandemic, I kind of want to pivot a little bit and almost circle back to something you said earlier on, but just thinking about the influx in trash that you've noticed since the very beginning when you went to that campsite to now, and how you said you've seen this increase in vandalism over the past few years. Like, do you think that is primarily to do with social media, or also a large influx of people who have started to seek reprieve, I guess, in the outdoors because of the pandemic, but they're all new to outdoor spaces and they don't, even know what leave no trace principles are or something like that? And what do we do to get people to care, to want to educate themselves, to like seek out information? Because to me, like, I speak to a group of people that already care. They already are invested. They've signed up to volunteer and be ambassadors because they want to do more. They just didn't maybe know how. But then there's another sect of people that maybe don't even know how, like, don't even know that there are things that they should be doing or not doing, and maybe don't necessarily care to know. So what do we do about that?
The multi-billion-dollar question. Yeah. What do we do? Again, lot to unpack there. I got a lot of thoughts. How do I start? So one, I don't think it's any shock that the rise of popularity in the outdoors has pretty well correlated with the rise in popularity of social media. If you chart, and I have, social media users and usage, like for Instagram, for example, the amount of users Instagram has pretty well correlates with the amount of visitors in national parks. It's not a stretch to say that people, monkey see, monkey do, they got a lot of likes and engagement for taking a photo like that, so I am going to replicate and go and do that.
Right.
There's also a thing called broken windows theory, which is pretty fascinating, and it's this kind of idea of, if you come into an area that is not well taken care of, kind of run down, broken windows, that actually kind of encourages, or people feel like it's run down. Nobody cares about this place, so I'm just going to add to the broken windows. What does it matter? Kind of going into that same thing in areas where vandalism starts. People see that and they think it's okay, and so they start adding their own vandalism to it. And sometimes it's they don't know. Sometimes they don't. It's that they don't care. I struggle with which is worse, because ignorance in our day and age, with how much information we have, shouldn't be an excuse. With how much information is available, you can easily Google, and this isn't litter or vandalism, but it's still an illegal activity, droning in the national parks. Are drones illegal in national parks? First thing you get, it's right there. But still people are like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, really? You didn't know that?
Mhm.
Um, and so, you know, to your point, you're talking to people that are already invested, that are already bought in, already part of the choir, if you will. And the funny thing
Mhm.
is I had a commenter one time say, "Way to preach to the choir." And I responded, "You're
Mm.
absolutely right. I'm preaching to the choir. My goal is to grow that choir.
Right.
How do I get more people to see that stewardship is cool, taking care of these places is
Mhm.
cool, beyond whatever likes and engagement I'm going to get on social media?" And so
Yeah.
the how, the why is to teach these correct principles, get the message out as much as possible to as many people as possible. And that, the good thing is the overwhelming majority of people are good. They want to do
Mhm.
good. And it is just making those voices the more, um, you know, the louder voices in the room versus the, the jerks that want to destroy formations at Lake Mead, that, you're referencing,
Right.
or carve their Instagram handle.
Right.
When we can change it to stewardship is cool, not carving your Instagram handle to get more likes, then I think we're going to really see a big shift in how people see the outdoors and how they treat the outdoors. So it's a challenge. It's an uphill battle. There are simply flat out people that just don't care. But education goes a long way. I think one experience that really helped me with that is um, I did a little campaign called "Don't Be a Karen," which is to talk about
Great.
stop unneeded rock stacking. Yeah,
Creating.
and
Yes.
you look at it, and it's like people are just stacking rocks. What's the big deal? But when you really get into it, like when it's thousands of these things, like Zion National Park is experiencing, it does actually cause damage to the environment and those areas.
Mhm.
Two, like a cairn in the Narrows is probably the most unnecessary thing on planet Earth.
Not necessary.
It's you go up and you come back. You don't need to find a trail. And two, on that is to talk about building these unauthorized cairns can actually really confuse people if they're like
Mhm.
not knowing where the trail is and trying to navigate by the official ones. And so I put that out. It's funny. It's kind of a little tongue in cheek. It's but it's also a message. And the kind of the idea behind it was: is it engaging? Is it easily shareable? Is it entertaining? And a lot of my stuff will get a fairly good amount of engagement. That one kind of took off, got shared with a
Mhm.
with a whole bunch of groups. And the cool thing was, yeah, of course there were detractors, and there's people that kind of tell me to go F myself, which is
Right.
a common occurrence sometimes. But the great thing about that was so many people were like, I had no idea. I didn't know this was an issue. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it right there. That's all it is to understand. Oh, I see that that's an issue. I see that that's an impact. I'm going to change my
And now I
behavior.
know.
And I'm like, yep, that's awesome.
Yes. That was very similar. So a week or two ago now, we hosted a cleanup for just a company, and I partnered with the city of Phoenix. And one of the ladies came and she brought painted rocks, and people were like, "Wait, why are painted rocks a problem? Like they're so cute?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, but actually, very similarly to Karen, she's like, yeah,
Yeah,
you see one, and then you're going to see." Hundreds, like they'll just start, like people bring them out, and she's like, the paint is not good for the ecosystem, it's terrible for wildlife. Even when it says it's non-toxic paint, it's non-toxic to humans, it's not non-toxic to animals and all these other things. She's like, the paint can chip off and go all over the place, and you never know what it's going to impact. And like while they're cute, they are not good for the environment. And yes, we all love encouraging supportive messages, but this is not the place
yeah,
to do it. And people were
oh yeah,
really shocked, and they were like, wow, I did not know that this was, like such a detriment to the outdoor spaces that I love to do. And I've always just seen them and thought that they were, cute little
It-
Lucky Charms. And it's like, no, actually, this has a greater impact than you even
yeah.
think they
The
do.
the rock painting is an interesting one because I think sadly people are very well intentioned with those. It's like good
Totally.
vibes only, and you've got this, little encouraging
Yes.
messages, and they paint them, and then they leave them and think, oh, this will be so fun for somebody to find, and you put it in, and then
Yeah.
then going into all of those reasons. And you went to mountains, if you're familiar with those here in Utah. There was a little section of it that was called the Fairy Forest, and it all started
Okay.
out with a few people painting the rocks. They would build little fairy houses and things like that. And it was really cute. And then it just exploded. There's a few blogs that got it.
Mm-hmm.
Social media kind of took it, and it just exploded to the point that the Forest Service was like, "Okay, we have got to this is destroyed this area again, well intentioned, but." Destroyed the area, and they had to close it down for a bit and clean it all up. And there was a lot of efforts to, there's like signs now. It's like, this is not the fairy forest. Do not, do not leave anything here. So, and that's what's hard. That's what the challenge is that where, litter and vandalism and things like that, we can, really get into and talk about how devastating and difficult that is. And then you've got the parents and the kids are like, well, we're just trying to spread a good message, how and having those conversations. So that does get a little bit tough, but they're definitely needed. So
Yes. Yeah. Like we said before, like the more voices that actually educate, the better. And I've had to be the person on hikes before them, like, hey, no one wants to hear the loud music. Like, you should have headphones, And I'm like, I don't mean to be like this old granny curmudgeon out on the trails, but I'm like, that really does affect other people's experiences, and it startles wildlife, and it's just not meant to be there. And that's one of the things that I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to be that person, but somebody's got to be that person. So I'm going to try to use my voice to the best of my abilities, and I kind of think that's the theme of a lot of what we've been talking about is just like using your voice and being that person to step up and say, I'll be that person. If no one else is doing it, I think it needs to get done. I'll be that person. So I have a few finishing wrap up questions for you. One is briefly, if you would like to talk about one cause right now that you feel like is really important that you would like people to go and learn more about. So if you want to start with that one.
Sure. I think one of the biggest causes and a massive victory was the restoration of Grand Staircase and Bears Ears.
Yeah.
So those places are so, I don't know. I try not to get too emotional about things, but it's hard, especially when you have a connection to them. Again, it's hard when people think that this is a political issue, but this should be viewed as a win for humanity to preserve these places, and that future generations will be able to enjoy them. And so that was a cause I was pretty heavily involved in, in raising awareness for that, how that is a good thing, and to see that win, to see those places restored. And again, we can have political disagreements. That's part of what makes the world go round. Have disagreements and still be friends and shake hands at the end of the day. That was a win on a lot of fronts to have those fully restored. What I would really encourage anyone to get involved in, and I don't know if I have a specific one. But if you have a national park that is, that's your park, that's your thing. A lot of these parks now have charitable arms that are associated with them. Like, Zion National Park has the Zion Forever Project. Yellowstone National Park has theirs. Or there's the general, National Park Foundation. And I know that not everybody has the means to be able to, but if you can, I do think it's highly worth your time to give of your means and to kind of put your money where your mouth is and invest into those places. And then if you cannot, and that's okay. There's other ways to serve and to give. It doesn't always mean financially. is to get involved in trail cleanups. What's really cool to see is how many groups are really starting to come to light. You know, there's I think they're actually in Arizona as well. Keep Our Deserts Clean.
Oh yeah, we've got a bunch.
So there's, you know, they're a huge is to find you know, a group or start your own group and get out and get involved in trail and outdoor cleanups. There's so many opportunities, unfortunately, for graffiti remediation that you can also volunteer and get involved. And so I think that, you know, if anything is to find your voice, find what you're passionate about, and get involved in some way, just to start. And again, I promise people that they're going to find a better connection to the outdoors and find more meaning in their experiences when they do get involved in some way. So I don't know if I have a specific thing, but that would be a kind of more of a global recommendation.
Love that. My next question for you is, what does keeping nature wild mean to you?
Keeping nature wild to me means to be able to pass on what we are enjoying currently. It is a natural balance to things. You know, you look at the, you know, Star Wars, we'll bring a Star Wars reference in, you know, finding this balance and finding how do we have a harmony with things. It is the realization that man is not the only species on this planet, that there are places that deserve respect and that they deserve your participation in their perseverance for future generations. So keeping it wild is to put nature first, think about yourself second, and how do we leave it better for the next generations?
What a great off-the-cuff response. That was wonderful. It's like you planned it.
I did not. No notes. No notes. I guess one thing to that is to really emphasize the point that the outdoors truly is for everyone. The outdoors, not, you know, the physical, mental, spiritual benefits it has to people, that's all been very well documented. Everyone should have the ability to experience those things. I will add a caveat that we all need to work to make everyone for the outdoors. While the outdoors is for everyone, how do we lend our voices that we can all be for the outdoors and take care of it?
I think that was one of the first slogans that I saw of yours whenever you put something out about making everyone for the outdoors. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. That really resonates with me. And that is true. We should all have access, but we should all be working hard to make sure that access stays accessible and that we're all doing as much as we possibly can too. So that's such a great one. Okay. And my last one for you is, where can people find you?
Oh, in the metaverse, in the interwebs. Yeah.
Yes.
I really don't do Facebook much. Instagram is about the biggest social media that I've got, which is at Phill, Phill, 2 L's, Monson, Monson, and at Adventure Responsibly. Those are the two handles. That's about all I can manage in my life.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I promise anybody who goes there, you will love his graphics. You will love what he shares. It's all really educational and super fun. And he definitely doesn't hold back and make sure that everybody knows what's going on, which I value a lot. So thank you so much for everything you're doing and what you're advocating for and getting more people involved, and then for spending an hour of your time with me. So I can't wait to get this out to everyone. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to go contact him and get involved somehow. Obviously, keep nature wild. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.